Yes, y'all. This is Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, and how they earn respect. What it do, baby? What it do is my partner in crime, Mr. Kevin Carr, Mr. Career crossover in the house. What's going on, bro?
Hey, number one, can you hear me? Number two, hello, everybody. How's it going? I'm great to be back. Sorry I missed you last week, but I was on the road bringing my very best to my clients. So, man, it is good to be back. We're back. We're back.
We
We're back. And
we
to
are
my
back. We are
co-host,
back. Well, I had to share with the audience the impact that Pro the CEO, your company, does within all aspects of sports management, sports entertainment, whether it's college, whether it's professionals, and whether it's professionals transitioning into professional athletes transitioning into business for themselves. Uh, Most recently, University of Georgia is ranked number one college football, and I think you had some impact in that, right?
mm,
Being that
I'm
that is one of your clients in terms of you helping them create a culture of inclusion and working together truly as a team and building leaders. Talk to us a little bit about that because that's a power move in of itself.
Yeah, it's certainly for me and our hard work as a company, we've really earned the trust of some of our top institutions in the country, whether it be pro, collegiate, or amateur. Fortunately for us, University of Georgia gave us a call last year when they wanted to improve their organizational performance, particularly in the area of diversity, equality, inclusion, and we added innovation. We think it's innovative to add diverse teams, more women, more inclusion of women, more equality across the board for women. We also knew diversity was a strength, whether it be domestic or international. Strength is in how many great people you can bring to the table with diverse ideals. And we were able to break that down into the performance of sports and improving coaches, improving student athletes and workforce. And I would say I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. They have a really optimal environment, and we're glad that they embraced a lot of the training and development that we offered. And now you see some of the results. Even in the midst of COVID, the organization challenged itself and really has risen to the occasion. And I believe they're where they are because of the hard work that they put in. We just were able to complement and take some of the things that they did and enhance upon it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of sports. October is like the month that all the sports come in. You got baseball playoffs, you got uh NBA is launching today, baby, today, and there's been some craziness happening there. You have the NFL in midseason, right? And then you also
Mhm.
have hockey going on. I mean, I'm not into hockey, but we have hockey. I'm in Tampa Bay, so
Oh,
I
okay.
gotta
Come
check
on.
them out here and there, right?
You
So
gotta embrace the puck and the ice. It's gotta be
that's right.
included. If
That's
you
right.
live here in Tampa Bay, it's one of our top performing teams, actually. But for the most part, as you called it, Joel, all the seasons, all the teams are blended together quite nicely, and we're getting this nice effect of all the sports we love. Baseball is closing out its season, becoming very competitive. We also see the NBA and the NHL coming on. And then don't forget, Bubba Wallace 2 weeks ago won NASCAR. So
That's
we
right.
think we know that the sports and entertainment looks entirely different than it did a year ago with all the restrictions. So we're seeing some improvement across the board in some teams. I hear that the Brooklyn Nets, your Brooklyn's in the
In the
house, is
house.
number one rated coming out the blocks for the NBA. So we'll see if they can dethrone Giannis. I can't say the last name,
That's
but
a kind of
Giannis.
noopo.
Yes. I don't want to hurt it because he knows I love him. But Giannis are supposed to defend it. But you look at the Lakers and all the experience they put together. So I'm excited. But man, let's flip it to you. The world of entertainment keeps reinventing itself. I'm hearing some new things. in terms of battles, I'm hearing some new things in terms of technology. What's out there, man? Fill
Well,
us in.
and I'm happy you talk about that. You know, what's going on is now they're embracing what's called non-fungible tokens. And, you know, we've had our boy Marcus Howard and several of the folks that are into gaming. This has usually been something that was really part of the gaming industry, in which they talked about creating their own currency and coins.
Mm-hmm.
And now all the different artists, whether the person is a creative artist, a drawer, or if a person is a musical artist, they're now launching their albums. They're now launching, small videos. So it's almost like a keepsake. It's a digital keepsake. So most recently, we just had the Versus, which was unbelievable. Big Daddy Kane versus KRS-One. You know, I personally, I'm a Brooklyn guy, so you know I'm going for Kane. I love me some KRS-One, but I had to represent for Kane. And you know, literally, he did run out of songs because KRS's catalog is very, very long. However, he held his own. The freestyle, and this was memorable. You had hip hop, breakdancing. You had the battle of the DJs a little bit. You had most of the elements. The only thing that was missing from the hip hop was a graffiti stage. Other than that, you had all the elements of hip hop, from the fashion in terms of, you know, whether it's Adidas or Pumas, from a fly perspective, the way Big Daddy King came in really nice and smooth, where KRS-One represented what's called the boom bap movement in terms of underground hip hop and things of that nature. So you had all the elements, and it was a great show, fantastic show. And it's now available for $199. Swiss Beats and Timbaland, give them major props to that. The night before we had, that night was Supercat performed with Wyclef and a lot of Jamaican legends like Barrington Levy, a crooner. So it was, this weekend was phenomenal. Also want to give a big shout out to the War and Treaty, my people, Michael and Tanya Trotter. Michael's a former veteran, and the person we're going to have today, she supports our veterans, but they're on tour with Lauren Daigle. They're opening up for her, and they're doing a phenomenal job. They even singing with Lauren Daigle, and this is huge. Okay. Lauren Daigle's a big Christian pop singer, artist, and I went to the show a couple weeks ago in Orlando. Oh wow! They did their thing, so I'm so happy for them. It's so tough now too, because with COVID, it would be so easy for me to get backstage passes. But now, even though I know these people, like a couple months ago, I went to the Capitol Jazz Festival, checked out Eric Benet. We had great seats. I brought my boys with me, and we couldn't go backstage because of COVID. You know, you got it's so isolated, so stringent. However, you know, safety first.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, the other thing I want to share is check out United Masters, in terms of, because they just did a partnership with Coinbase so that artists can collect their royalties via crypto. So these, so this NFTs and this crypto world is really merging together to really enable and empower our artists, our athletes, because even athletes are jumping into this, to really be able to control their destiny and their currency. With that being said.
Absolutely. And I think you're right on with the blockchain and Bitcoin. It is definitely, we're now seeing people being paid half their checks in Bitcoin or blockchain type of funding. So it is here. If you are not serious about it, you need to consider getting serious, because that is a big part of how, even I read some information earlier last week that the US government is getting more serious about the blockchain and Bitcoin because of the printing of money. We print it so much now that we have to really stop and look at other forms of currency to catch and balance ourselves out. So it is coming, and we're here to tell you. We're always here sharing what we think could be a good opportunity for everyone. So go ahead, man. Let's
Yeah,
introduce
man, because that's the power
as we
move.
get going.
So our
Absolutely.
theme, with Proto CEO, you have your your 9 medallions. That
Hmm.
stands for champions. C is for confidence, and the S is for spiritual synergy. And we just had that a person last week, Brett Wright. We talked about that. I mean, not Brett Wright. It was Fred Crawford. We talked about confidence and spiritual synergy. This guest tonight also exudes confidence to the nth degree, and her spiritual synergy is to the nth power as well. And I just want to share with you, the beauty of this lovely lady. She's a noted expert in the field of accelerated cost segregation, a niche that not too many women are in, that understand how to penetrate that industry and that market. She also takes great pride in helping Americans and American businesses fully capture their opportunities for success. Her career-long fascination with organization of performance and opportunities, just like my man Kevin Carr, in terms of organizational development, has helped her provide motivational training and speaking with awesome results. She has several companies. One is Hayley Capital. The other one is Advanced Strategic Analysis Partners. She's an accomplished real estate professional, and she grew up in the commercial real estate development building industry in the Texas coastal area because her grandfather, father, brother, great uncle, the whole clan has been doing commercial real estate for years upon years, since the 70s, since the Afro, baby. She has a strong ability to turn vision into reality through sound strategy, a single mother that is no other. She has a strong cross-disciplinary team of professionals, diverse in construction, architecture, interior design, legal, business consulting, tax, and accounting. How does she do it? We're going to find out today. In addition, she's also volunteering and has been very successful in fundraising for organizations such as the USO, the National Center for Healthy Veterans, and had helped focus on speaking engagements with expert tax advisors on the research and development advantages to professional businesses and entrepreneurs. She's won numerous awards, one in which Fortune magazine, she's been part of creating the 100 best companies to work for 3 consecutive years in a row. She's part of the American Society of Training and Development as one of the best 5 learning organizations in the world. And she has numerous testimonials. Let's welcome to the show my superhero, Miss Barbara Hayley. What it do?
Hey, Joel. Hey, Kevin. Nice to meet you. And Joel, thank you for having me on the show tonight. I'm just thrilled and honored to be here.
Well, welcome, and thank you for gracing us with your presence, and welcome to the show. And how are you doing during this pandemic?
I'm doing great. I'm actually setting up here in Virginia. I just opened a second office up in Virginia. So I'm in Virginia right now, sitting on 350 acres. I traveled a lot during the pandemic. Coincidentally enough, I had a lot of site visits. I didn't stop. So just like during Hurricane Harvey, the waters were all around me, and I decided to start another business because it's all I could do. So I got on the computer and started a company because that's what I could do. So I didn't really stop much. I don't, the pandemic's been an awful thing for people, but as far as me personally and my business, I haven't let up an ounce.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So that's very good. Thank you so much for being on. We're excited. And we actually know that you have a lot of gifts and we have a lot of interesting people. We're going to jump into a little bit of the personal, then we'll get into the business. You're a mother.
But before we do that, Kevin,
yeah,
because we got literally 60 seconds before we got to pay some bills. So before we get into that question, because we go in on our questions, but once again, it's amazing that and this is going to be what's great about this story is that you are from Houston and yet you started a new business in Virginia. So we can't wait to really touch on that story after the break. So once again, this is Power Moves where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, and how they earn respect. See you after the break, only here on In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everyone is a star.
And Kevin Carr, and we're with Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, and how they earn respect. Come join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Power Moves on In-Touch Radio.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. Looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers on the grill. Located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
All right, we are back. This is Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, how they earn respect. Kevin, hit him with the question, baby.
You know, we have a lot of enterprising moms on the show, and we would not be remiss if we didn't ask about, how you have managed in all your success to raise your daughter by yourself and earn a successful living and make good, money as a professional. That's something that a lot of moms who listen to the show are interested, even dads. So my interest is, tell us about that. How'd you do that, and what kinds of things occurred along the way to help you find out also how to make a good living?
Sure. Goodness. In the beginning, I didn't. I left my corporate job and it was tough. It was 2008 and the market crash had happened. The economy was awful and nobody wanted a consultant. And that was the company that I had at the time. And my daughter was about 6 years old. And I just knew, though, that I needed to be home with her, work out of my house and try to earn a living. It was pretty tough for a while. But I would say the key ingredients for me was, number one, I took any job I could get at the time. If you needed a little marketing gig or you needed me to work with some, I didn't say anything was beneath me because I had to earn a living. And so I did just about anything anybody was willing to pay me for. And I figured out how to do stuff that people needed. And then I learned from a man, you may have heard of him, Gallery Furniture in Houston, Texas. So Jim McIngvale taught me, he goes, be grateful in all circumstances. So when the times were tough, that's when I was the most grateful. And I used Romans 8:28 as my guiding tool, that all things come together for good. And I believed that down in my core. And I think that one of the things that started to make me money was I would do little marketing gigs for people. I didn't have any professional marketing training, but I knew how to go and connect people. So I connected people and I made a little money off of that. And then I found the cost segregation group, which we can talk further about that, but I found the company that actually started my second business. And I said, well, why don't, instead of me doing marketing for you, why don't I just start my own business and do it myself with you? And that's so I think I just really looked to see what needed to get done and where could I charge money for it in the beginning. I think if you go off and start a little business, it's very difficult unless it's a storefront with products inside. If you have a service, it's very challenging to think you're going to go out and do X, Y, and Z. You may not. You may say, okay, this guy needs this and I'm going to charge X amount for it. And then you sort of work your way to where you end up. And that's how it worked for me.
You know what? That's interesting. So you had your 6-year-old daughter. I'm going to dig deeper into that now. So you had your 6-year-old daughter, and in 2008, were you laid off, or you decided, you know what, I'm making the decision to find a way to make sure that I can have my work-life balance?
And actually, when you said 2008, she was actually 10 then, but when she was 6, I had put her in daycare after school. And then I realized I didn't want her in after school daycare. So the only way to do that was to work from home. And so, it was very challenging. I mean, she had to learn not to, make noise in the house when I was working. 'Cause back then people didn't work out of their house, that much. And I also gave speaking engagements. So that's another way that I really grew my network was I had topics obviously that I could train on and teach on. And my daughter would go and sit in the back of the room. She actually started at about 2 years old. She would be sitting in the back of the room and I'd have a 2 hour speech. And so it was sort of known that my daughter and I came as a package too. So many times I'd go to corporate executive board meetings and my daughter would be there next to me. And when she was a baby, sometimes she would be at the board table with a little chair next to me. And that was just the name of the game for me. Now, that doesn't always work for everybody, but that's what helped me get through those times. And I just worked hard and I just really looked around and saw what is it I need to do. So I first started out consulting and then I sort of pivoted to the marketing and the connecting piece.
Okay, so I want to pause right there. I'm sorry to interrupt you because you just said something pretty incredible. And I really want to kind of underscore that. And that's why I said the theme is confidence, because not too many individuals, male or female, is going to bring their 2-year-old into the boardroom to do meetings. How in the heck did you do that? Like, what gave you the cojones, the confidence to be like, either you take it or leave it? Because that's a power move in of itself.
Well, I'll actually, let me drill one little side vertical on that. I actually rescued 10 cottontail bunnies when I was building my house with my daughter after things got a little better. And I took those to work with me too and fed them these little bunnies that carried around in a basket because they would have died. They were tiny little bunnies. How did I do that? I worked for great people at the time. At that time, I worked for a corporation, a bank. And we had a great culture and they understood that I was an only parent and they knew my daughter and I were very close and they allowed it. I even took her sometimes to all day training and put a pallet in the back of the room and let her stay. This is even before school. So I don't live my life by a certain set of imposed rules on me. Now, that gets me in trouble sometimes. I've had to learn.
But that's why you're an entrepreneur now, though, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've had to learn some restraint in that area. 20 years ago, I didn't have any. So today I have a little more discernment, but I've always been a stretch the envelope, break that rule if it ought to be broken, shift that paradigm. Why do you have that? Why? And I remember a girl coming down the hallway going, Barbara, you can't have monies in the bank. And I go, why not? I didn't understand the question. So I don't know that everybody's bent that way or built that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bent or built that way. I think that there's other ways though you can find to express that confidence, because if you're not naturally, or at least inside your core, someone who knows how to move that envelope, you got to test it a little bit, but it's just natural for me. I just naturally, if rules don't make sense, I don't really follow them too well.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
Barbara, I'm interested in, can you share with us a time in your relationship, even having hard times when your faith, enabled or empowered you to overcome a financial hardship or some type of setback? What was it?
Yeah, those first probably 5 years were constantly hard. Every day was hard. And my daughter was in a very affluent private Christian school, because as an only mom, I managed the statistics of that. So I studied and researched the statistics of being an only mom. There's a difference in being a single parent with a co-parent and being an only parent. I was an only parent. And so I really studied and mastered those statistics down in my core. And when I didn't think I could do something else, I just remembered, I've got to do this for her. I've got to do this for us. And I let the Lord guide me. And I was really grateful. And I know it sounds kind of odd, but I was truly grateful for that hardship, because it made me stronger. It made me more humble. It made me more grateful. And I centered myself in, you are going to go through this hardship because what's on the other side is preparing you for something bigger than this. And I never lost sight of that. I really did, even in the worst days. And there were days where I needed $500. I really needed $500, and I didn't know where $500 was going to come from. And then there were days where I needed the $3,000 for the school, and I didn't know where that was going to come from. And it almost seems like with 5 o'clock, the money that would come, and the next day at noon that would come. Because I also believe if you just plant the right seeds and you keep fostering those seeds, they start to pop on you. You know what I mean? You don't watch, okay, I planted that seed. It's like watching water boil. That wasn't, it was just keep doing all the right things, keep being as good as you can with people, keep believing, keep faith. And then all of a sudden when I needed it, it started to happen in those moments that I needed it. And then I would get creative in my thinking of what am I going to do and how am I going to do this or how am I going to get that done? And then I just kept strengthening myself. And then at some point I came out of that and then came on the other side. And I haven't done a campaign to promote my business in probably 6 years, and I have more business than I can handle. And I think it was just those years of really putting in the hard work. Now, I don't slack. I don't sit back for a minute. And I'm going to say this one last thing. You asked me a question. So in sales, I learned from a really great salesman that when salespeople or sales professionals or entrepreneurs make that kill, they want to go rest or they want to go enjoy it. And what I do is I put that off. I go do one more, and then I go do it. Does that make sense? So I don't do a good sale and then go celebrate. I actually go do one or two more, and then I do, just to keep pushing myself to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
I'm happy you talk about that, and you use that S word that a lot of people are very scared about, right? And that's sales. And I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but there's a lot of people, especially women, that are scared of sales. Oh man, I don't want to be looked on as a car salesperson, or you looked at as a sleaze person, whatever case may be. Can you describe what sales means to you?
Yeah,
your definition of what sales is, and how do you teach other women to get that stigma out of their minds and just constantly keep working at perfecting the skill of sales?
Well, I think, no one wants to be sold. And that's the key. I'm going to sell them out of it. I'm going to sell you, or I'm just not interested in that. I'm here to really but we've tried to turn the word into other things that dilute it a little bit. But sales is really goals and accomplishment. For me, it's just goals and accomplishment. What am I going to accomplish today? And I put it in the context of sales, but there's so many other ingredients that go inside of that for me. But the one thing I don't do is I don't go in there and say, okay, if I position myself this way, if I do this, it's none of those techniques. I don't sell through a technique. I don't like techniques. I like authenticity and real relationship, real trust. And I also, one of the things I teach is when you've got a strength and that strength is mastered. For instance, walking in the door trusted. Like there wasn't always a time I wasn't necessarily always prepared. I might have walked in the door a little bit, not sure of something. But once that got handled and I mastered that, and I would call it trust, I put the trust behind me as like a spotlight and brought something else forth. See, a lot of times people keep bringing the same thing they've already mastered in front, and they keep trying to prove that. They keep trying to show that off. Well, when it's there, it's just there. It just walks in with you. So when I let things that are my core competencies that I've mastered, I put them behind me, let them sort of be the wind beneath my wings and bring something else forth. And therefore I walk in with a whole lot of core competencies that just walk in the door with me. So I would say that. So first, the context of sales, and not selling anyone. And sales is really just accomplishment and goals and appreciation for me.
Nice. Perfect way to end it so we can go on commercial break, digest the wisdom that just came in just now, right?
Very profound.
From Mother
Filling up the
Nature.
room.
Y'all are too good. Y'all are just too good to me. Thank you.
So once again, this is Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, how they earn respect. Only here on In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everyone is a star. See you after the break.
Hey baby, baby, can you tell me what you're going through?
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
You've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Paris from the Law Office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
All right, we back. Getting ready to go into the power segment.
Absolutely.
So, what you say, Kevin?
I said, go ahead, man. We're ready. I'm jumping.
Yeah, that's right. So we getting ready to go into the power segment, and speaking of power, just an announcement before I get into my question. Just want to let everybody know, Joelle Sylvain is looking for personal sponsors for my nonprofit, The Smile Experiment, dedicated to my mother, Ms. Marie J. Agenor, who passed away May 14th. And I am going to be doing the Tough Mudder Challenge, December 11th. I'm gonna create a T-shirt. If you're in business, you get your logo on there. You can sponsor me. This is dedicated to mothers like mine, like Barbara Hayley, only parents that are doing their thing no matter what, because this Tough Mudder is no joke. I'm partnering up with my buddy Mark Jenkins, the trainer to celebrities, D'Angelo, Mary J. Blige, Busta, Beyonce, you name it. Him and I are partnering up, and we are going to do, so I'm going to be all chiseled up by the time December 11th comes along, baby. Ready for this challenge. And it takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of persistence, which is why, and as you can tell, I'm wearing the color pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I want to ask Barbara, as a breast cancer thriver, how do you walk with the confidence to keep your head high and strive for greatness? And you can kind of share a little bit about your story, because I know, but what you went through is pretty remarkable, and yet you still operate your businesses all at the same time.
Yeah, very good. Well, 2018, I had a mammogram. I hadn't had one in 18 years, so not a doctor guy. I don't get sick. And it was diagnosed with breast cancer. And needless to say, I was shocked. I didn't even have an aspirin in my house at the time. We just hadn't been sick and hadn't had the flu, hadn't cold, nothing, 30 years. And I was quite shocked. And I went to Baylor College of Medicine for my diagnoses and all those tests. And then I started searching out surgeons and what that was going to look like. And I ended up leaving Houston and went to San Antonio, because I said, I can't do this right now. I'm going to have to wait a little bit. This isn't, am I dying? And they're like, no, but you got to get it out. And I go, okay, well, let's get that out. And then let's figure out the major stuff later. And they weren't willing to do that. I understand that. So I found some super microsurgeons in San Antonio, and they got the main invasive cancer out, and we surveilled me for over a year while I could my business. I mean, the one thing about, and I've told you this before, Joelle, my life and my business are in domains. So I don't look at priorities. People would say, well, your health comes first. Not really. My health is in a domain. And inside that domain, I have goals and accomplishments and specific measurable results. But my domains don't compete with one another. And yes, sometimes I do more in one domain than I do the other. But if I don't keep my business going, I don't have a business, I can't pay for health insurance. So, or can't take, I mean, I just don't reconcile things that way. I reconcile my daughter still had to graduate from college. I still had to be faithful. I still had to run a business, and I had to figure out how to do cancer at the same time. And so they sort of paralleled, and then one would balance the other, but there wasn't ever this hierarchy. I don't live my life in a hierarchy. So nothing took precedence in a context wise over a period of time. So anyway, but I would say how I thrived was I owned every single decision. No one made a decision for me. My surgeons got that right away. There was going to be no you telling me what we're going to do here. If I don't own it, I don't do it, period. And a quick funny story was I told them there's some parameters. We were getting ready for the big one, the big double mastectomy surgery. And it was a 12-hour surgery. They were taking 25% of my back to reconstruct my front and taking out the stuff in the front. And I said, there's some parameters here for the surgery. So call me before we schedule it. And the young girl, somehow didn't get communicated. And she called and she said, okay, we got your surgery scheduled on Monday, blah, blah, blah. I go, yeah, no, that isn't necessarily going to work. Monday is one of my actually not going to do days. And she goes, Barbara, we've got 6 surgeons. We've got the hospital. We've got the anesthesiologist. It's all booked. I said, I got it. And I can't own that Monday. I just cannot own it. I'm going to be there 2.5 weeks. I'm moving my whole life. People are coming in. I can't own that. She says, but it's scheduled. And I go, well, then y'all have to operate on somebody else that day because I can't own that. So I didn't do it. Well, then we went back to the table, and as we ended up, we actually did another surgery. It would have had to been canceled anyway. But what I would tell women is, it's your body, and they're your decisions. You make them in conjunction with your doctors. But if somebody had told me this is what you're going to do, I'd have said, well, then I better find another doctor because I may or may not do that thing. And so it was very important to me to own. I mean, I own everything I do pretty much all the time, but this particularly. So that's how I have the strength is if something happened, I owned it. And I told my family, if something happens, I own this. I own these doctors. I own this choice. I own this surgery. You just, if something happened to me, just, be sad for a while and then move on. Yes.
So Barbara, excellent question. Great setup for what I'm thinking next as a question for you is, to me, your voice and that question, the way you answered it, you just got more powerful and more powerful. So the power segment is so appropriate right now. What I will say is you got me thinking now, where does that power come from in you?
Well, for me, since I was little, it's always been through my faith in Jesus Christ and the Lord. It's always been that way for me. It doesn't mean I've always lived a perfect life, but it's always been that way. But I think God instilled in me certain things, and then about that have made me strong over my life. But in 1996, I did a course called Landmark Forum. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but it transformed my life. And in that course, and over the years taking those programs, I learned to distinguish. So for me, it's all about distinguishing and discerning everything to the minute detail. So I distinguish accountability from responsibility. Everything in my life is very distinguished. I might generalize in my speaking, but my thought is always distinct. I distinguish this listening from that listening. I distinguish this perspective from that perspective. I distinguish context from perspective. I distinguish a context inside of a context. And so if you look at the definition of wisdom, it's to discern, and to discern is to distinguish. And so for me, I don't have a lot of trouble making decisions and choices in my life because it's always, and then there's a distinguished choice. And then there's a distinction in my world called decision. So when you decide something, you actually, the word side, homicide, suicide, those sides kill off an answer, kill off something, whereas choosing is really free from any of those reasons. So I've had a lot of training. I've done a lot of training in my life. And the company I work for sent me through a lot of training, and I've done a lot of training on my own. So I would say the Lord put me on a path to discover these things so I can be a strong person, not only for myself, my daughter, for other people. And I've got people that I know going through stuff, and I see, you know, my shoulders are big and my back is strong and I can take it. So give me what you got. And I am kind of that way. Just give me what you got. Let's get it done. Let's do it. I'm not even, 8 days after that double mastectomy, I had a call with 12 developers in one firm. It was the only time they could do it. We were up against Christmas, and we had to make a decision because they had $1 billion worth of property. And I had all my medicines out. I was like, don't take the medicines right now because I can't remember. And so I laid them there because I was in serious pain. But I did the call, and we got through it, and then, went on, and then I up and down. But I wasn't back full-time work, but I was back at work about 8 or 9 days later, laying in the bed, making calls because, I run my business. I have people that do a lot of things for me, but they don't do the ultimate things that I do. And I didn't have much of a choice, so I just had to do it.
I want to rewind a little bit because you provided some clarity and some it's not new vocabulary, but a different perspective on how to use vocabulary to really crystallize the vision and the mission that you have for yourself personally, which is that's a very distinguishing characteristic, right? So can you define, because we have about 4 minutes before break, but can you once again clearly define in elementary terms the difference between distinguishing and how to use that distinguishing talent, or how to use distinguishing in making decisions, as well as the difference between that and discernment that you had mentioned and imparting wisdom?
Well, I look up words a lot. So I look up words. So I'm going back to school. I'm taking 15 hours. I'm majoring in apologetics and history. And in my last week, I had to go look up 20 words. I didn't even know those words. It's like, what are these words? I don't know these words. But I do look up words, and I study these words, and I use them correctly. And so that's a distinction in and of itself. So to elementarize, distinguish is just, what's the distinction? What's the difference in being accountable and being responsible, for instance, in your company? Responsibility comes from within. Accountability is what you agree to do. What's the difference in agreements and commands? What's the difference in authority and leadership? So I do an exercise when I do corporate training, and I uncover their context for leadership, which is always authority, almost always, every corporation I've ever done it in. And so it's about knowing the definitions of those words and what do they mean and how can they get used, and don't use them interchangeably, and really get down to another level of using words and being very specific. For instance, when I send an email, sometimes I'll get a referral for a $50 million building. I'll send one email and close that deal because my emails are perfect, and the words, and I never use pronouns in an email with a client ever. No pronouns, not, I mean, I might say Joelle 8 times in that email, because if I'm talking about Joelle and Kevin and the client and the place, I'm always labeling the name of that. So therefore there's no confusion. It's like, wait, did she say Joelle was coming or Kevin was coming? So that's how I would say I have a lot of strength.
Wow. So give us a little more on that answer. So when you say you never use a pronoun, give us a sentence or two from a letter that's just a killer letter coming from you.
Well, so for instance, I might say, dear Kevin, enclosed are the documents for your cost segregation study. The site visit will take place, and Richard and Joelle and I will be there. So instead of saying, and he will meet with you, because see, I've just named 2 men, he will meet with you. I don't say that. I'll say, Richard will meet with you. And so what I do is I just put the names of people, the names of places, and the names of things. I don't use they, I don't use things, I don't use he, she, any of those words. And then I have to think, well, what would I use if I didn't use that? And so what happens is my emails, people have to think. They just go, there it is. There it is. And so, but taking the pronouns in the speaking as well, but more importantly, in the written communication, take those pronouns out of there. Your English teacher might disagree with me, but it's a fact. Take it out.
Excellent.
Because you know what it does is it gives you, I mean, for this person that's reading it,
Right.
it gives them clarity and they can see where everything is because you have the person, place, and thing that's specific. So
That's right.
on that note, being specific, you know, we got another break. We got to pay some specific bills.
You got it.
So once again, this is Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, how they earn respect. We're going to jump into the respect segment only here on In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everyone is a star. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Power Moves. See you after the break.
Cancer affects everyone, but minority populations are often hit hardest. Moffitt Cancer Center is working to address the barriers that keep some groups from getting the care they need. African Americans develop cancer at a younger age, have more aggressive cancers, and experience worse outcomes than the general population.
While cancer treatment is evolving with precision medicine, who is being left behind? We know for many decades that some groups experience a greater burden of cancer than others. We can prevent it, we can detect it early. It's very beatable when we find it early. I have worked with cancer patients during their treatment. All cancer patients have courage.
So my treatment was about 18 months. I had 3 cancers and 7 surgeries. But my son told me, like, Mom, you're the strongest person that I know. Moffitt saved my life.
During COVID-19, Moffitt is a safe place for your cancer care. Call now to schedule an appointment.
All right, we back. This is Power Moves with celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract power, and how they earn respect. And this is our respect segment. We have the lovely, the powerful, the distinguished Ms. Barbara Hayley from Hayley Capital here in the place to be. And I want to talk about the industry and the niche that you're in, because you're in a niche of real estate, but real estate and taxes, right? Where in commercial real estate, construction, taxes, it's really, I hate to be stereotypical, but it's primarily a man's game, right?
Correct.
How in the world did you manage to penetrate that market, gain respect, and command it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. When I first began, I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. I just saw it. I was like, I think I could do that. This sounds really interesting. And then I worked with a team of engineers and I learned the business. And there were terms that I didn't even know what it was. I never heard that term before. And I had to, wait, what is that again? And it took a lot of courage to get on the phone with a CPA because I didn't know anything about taxes. And get on a phone with a CPA and talk about accelerating the taxes of a commercial property with an accountant. I can't even tell. Sometimes I would get so sick at my stomach, I don't even know what to do. And now my CPA, there's no issue at all. And I actually teach architects and builders and engineers how to build tax-friendly buildings. And not the whole building, but there are certain areas of that building, I teach them how to do that. And I gained respect by I would say my emails were so clear. Men may not necessarily, people in general don't write real clear emails. And my emails were so clear and I spoke with such confidence. And I asked a client once, I said, you took me over your CPA's advice of a firm. He goes, I don't know, Barbara, I just felt like you were going to get the job done. And I didn't worry about it. So I come across, I have every client I ever started with. and I'm about to close $350 million worth of property. And that's just a small chunk of this big chunk that's about to close. And I'm actually working with a university here, their School of Engineering. And so growing my business, and the School of Engineering is providing very cutting edge things for commercial property. We're fixing to form 3 businesses together. And we're going to bring some real new technologies out there to commercial property. And so, and I really care about people. There's no doubt about it. I care about people, and I just have a knack to, I can understand what's important to them and make sure I speak into that. And I'm not intimidated by much, and I'm not arrogant about it though either. So I don't come across where I know it all, or I got to get my 2 cents in. And I have, in 350, 400 buildings, never had a client get upset about anything ever. Of course, I oversee everything too, and I'm going to be, at some point, I won't be able to oversee everything. So the person that's going to sort of be my right-hand person is going to have to be really trained my way in that role. But I mean, I can sit next to anybody and have any kind of conversation, and I'm very well-rounded in my discussions. So there's not much that you couldn't ask me about that I wouldn't be able to at least carry on a pretty decent conversation for an hour.
I like the way you mentioned, and those are power words to make power moves. You said you're not intimidated by anyone. I love that, because I think that's a sense of where your power comes from. But in a sense also, you said you're not arrogant, which I believe for our respect segment really keys in on that. So I really love that. I wanted to bring that out. So when you talk about you being, we've talked about faith being a big part of, seems like one of your best attributes, and obviously we're just getting to know you here. Being a devout believer, Christian, can you share how your spiritual synergy helped you through trying times when a lot of people have given up? What do you do differently to really get through using your faith? Because I think a lot of people avoid that, and that's something that I think is a move that within itself can be used in a way that is, even if you have a different faith than someone else, I think it can be pretty instrumental. So can you talk to that?
Sure. Well, I don't apologize for my faith, and I don't shove it down people's throat either. I'm just there with it. It's just there within me. And it's just part of who I am. And you get that. It's one of those things, a phenomenon where you just get that. But I think the biggest thing is I don't apologize. I don't like apologies. I think people own you when you apologize, unless it comes from a really deep place. I always tell my daughter, don't you dare apologize to me for something. I want to see that it's better today than it was yesterday. But you apologize if it can come way down in there, but don't even think about apologizing to me and it's not real. So I find that it's really difficult to apologize, because most people just do it to get past the moment. And I don't like that very much. So I would just rather, I don't even want to talk about it. Can we just make it better? 5 minutes. Let's just pivot from where we are, and let's just be better in 5 minutes. So I have a great ability to pivot very quickly. I call it get off it or pivot. And I shared with someone recently, and they really didn't believe me. I said, I don't have bad moments during the day. I just don't allow myself those bad moments. So I think the faith is just the context for everything, but I've learned how to pivot. And I've also learned how not to look back if it's painful. And what happened during those painful years, I didn't look back at anything. And then I got used to not looking back if it was painful. And you know what? It's just not necessary. It's just not necessary. Take the book of Job. His wife looked back and she yearned for how it was. And so for me, I studied the book of Job, and I studied that. And I said, because I was a look back, God, I miss the 80s. I miss the time when we all had a lot of money. I miss those days. And I learned not to look back and really have the moment today and tomorrow be better than yesterday. So I work hard on every day, and I really do that. Every moment needs to be a little bit better than the last one, but pivot and get off it quickly. Just there's no room or no time to be upset, and I don't allow myself. I mean, if I need to be upset, I sit with it. I go, okay, be upset. You're upset. Be upset. But I try to move through that space, all those kind of spaces, very quickly, because I got other things I want to do. And I know that I can't do it if I'm in an upset or agitated space. So, and no, that didn't come overnight. That took some real diligence on my part to not allow things, when I was training at 5 o'clock in the morning at the medical center, there was no way to step in front of 70 surgeons that had triple PhDs and be upset from the traffic. So those 5 years I did that, I learned, don't let traffic get to you. I'm in Houston, it took me 2 hours to get there. So I've just learned that things, if you're going to be in traffic, don't let it upset you. What are you going to do? So I learned to have music be part of something that makes me, in the traffic, I listen to my music, and just, I don't focus on the things that can be an upset, like the traffic. I focus on music.
That's great, because basically, and this is kind of like the new dynamic that a lot of companies are doing, is focusing on the experience. Don't get caught up in the transaction, or don't get caught up in the thing, but focus on how do I enhance the experience? What is my experience going to be like? How am I going to enjoy it? Which is great. I'm loving that you really express that. No matter what type of adversity, you focus on, okay, you know what? It is what it is. What can I do to enhance my experience so that it's memorable, it's enjoyable for me, right? Which shows that you have respect for yourself, right? Because when you do that, you enhance respect for yourself. Let's talk a little bit about, and then we got 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So have you ever had an not an opportunity, but ever had an experience where someone just totally disrespected you? And I know you said, maybe it was the time when you wasn't as enhanced in how you balance those tough situations when someone disrespected you. But can you share with us, how would you mentor somebody if they ever got disrespected, whether them being someone of the opposite sex or a different sexual orientation, whatever the case may be, because you're a great communications trainer as well. How do you still command respect when people don't like whether it's political position, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I'm going to talk about that professionally. Gosh, we could do about 6 hours with that one.
I know, but we only have 2.5 minutes. So that's the challenge. Make it happen.
So one of the distinctions I use is two circles. Things happen, and there's interpretations, conclusions, stories, experiences about what happens. And I always separate those two, especially if it's an upsetting. Now, I'm so trained, I can do it in the moment. But in the past, I would always have two circles at my desk, and something would happen, and I would actually have to separate the things that are happening from my interpretation. So when you do that, it takes away a lot of the junk. It takes away a lot of the bad emotion. Number one. Number two, there's a term that I use, recontextualize. So people that are superb masters can take something negative you say, or at least negative to my ears, may not really be negative, but I might perceive it as negative. And then I can turn it into, so Joelle, I heard you say, I can't think of it in the moment, but if I'm prepared, so I might take it and turn it into something better. So I take what you say and make it better. And then I learned that I'm never going to let someone have control over my emotions. Every now and then I get caught, but when you stand with certain convictions and you say, if you upset me, then you're controlling me. And that ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. That is just not going to happen. So you don't get to control me. Now I'm a little bit of a control freak about myself, right? But you have to be when you're an only parent raising a daughter that is as accomplished as my daughter and doing all the things. You have to be somewhat of a control freak. So I have the position that no one else is going to dictate how I am. I'm going to choose my emotions and my feelings and myself. And I and I would always teach in the companies, if someone disrespects you and you disrespect them back, then you just lowered yourself. So why would you do that? Now, if I'm going to be disrespectful to you, that's just because I'm going to be disrespectful to you. But I'm not going to do it because you caused it out of me. You see, I might go at somebody with something, but for the most part, I'm going to do several things. I'm going to separate my interpretations from my conclusions, and I'm going to see if I can find another interpretation to live inside of, so I can have something going. Because I'm not interested in any type of. I really love people, and I want, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what, with few instances, I want to have some kind of connection with you.
There you go. All of it. So at the end of the day, in order to garner respect, find a way to find a connection with somebody. This was such a great show. I loved it. Thank you, Barbara, for coming through. We might have to come with a part 2 on this, on some other stuff, and talk a little bit about the training that you do on this as your third business. But once again, this was a great episode of Power Moves with my partner in crime, Mr. Kevin Carr, Pro to CEO. Go check out the NBA tonight. Lakers and the Golden State Warriors, baby. The Bucks and the Nets are playing right now. See you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Power Moves, only here on In Touch Radio. Reality radio where everyone is a star. Thank you, Barbara.
God bless. Thank you, Kevin.
You,
Thank you.
Barbara.
Well, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right.